Welcome everybody. This is Victor from Agape Infused Oils. This is another video of me completing another batch of the Royal King Mix body oil that I make. I say Royal King Mix because it's made with frankincense, myrrh, and benzoin resins. Those three are referred to as the Royal Mix. But this batch, instead of sweet almond oil and fractionated coconut oil, which was what I used on the previous batch that I made, I bought some golden jojoba oil, 100% pure, unrefined, organic. So here's an empty container. Dr. Adorable. This is off of eBay. These half-gallon containers normally sell for about 45 bucks, but I forget the store, the eBay seller. I'll be sure to put that in the description. But they also once in a while put up a couple bottles for bidding. So I was able to save on average about $20 in bidding, not including shipping. Shipping was another 8 bucks. So I got the bottles for about $25, $26. One of them I ended up paying, I think, 30 bucks. And then I think it was $8 shipping. So still save some money. I have one left. I bought 3. Jojoba is considered the best of the carrier oils, also the most expensive as a result. The chemical makeup of jojoba naturally resembles the sebum or natural oil in our skin. It absorbs a lot faster than sweet almond or coconut oil or most other oils for that matter. And also, unlike sweet almond oil, it doesn't stain. So if you don't give sweet almond oil enough time to settle into your skin, to absorb, it can stain. I haven't experienced that myself, but it is known to be able to cause that. So I made 2 batches. Last week I drained one. Let me put this aside. I'm gonna save this for another day. So last week I made this bottle here. Now these are half-gallon amber glass bottles, and the website is Aroma Tools. I did quite a bit of searching, and I was actually able to find these. These bottles were $4 and I think 37 cents, and then the pumps were like another $2 and change. So roughly about 7 bucks, less than $8 for the bottle and the included pump. Well, the pump you have to buy separately, but they're on the same website, Aroma Tools. I'll be sure to put that link as well. So last Saturday, I made a batch, and I let it go for, I think, about 4 days. The previous 2 batches I made, I normally had let those go for 2 days. And I figured, why not? I have the time, let it go longer. So I let this one go for 4 days. And then strained it, put it in here, labeled it, And when I got done, I took 8 vitamin E capsules and poked a hole in it and squeezed off the vitamin E supplements into the bottle. Vitamin E is known as a natural preservative. Now, sweet almond oil also has one of the longest shelf lives by itself, but I added, like I said, 8 vials of 8 soft gels of the vitamin E capsules to the oil as well, just as an added preservative to get it going. As you see, back over there on the counter is my crock pot and a huge glass jar that I was able to find at Ross. Instead of using the 32-ounce ball jars and having to use 2 of those for 64 ounces. I found that big nice jar. Now with the 64 ounces of resin, of oil, I actually used 32 ounces of resin. As I stated before in my previous video, I like to do a 1-to-2 ratio of resin to oil. So I use half as much resin as I do in gram weight wise, ounce wise, so I say, than what I use for oil. So 64 ounces of oil, 32 ounces of resin. The other batch that I made previously in other videos, you will see those are like 8-ounce jars, and I use 4 ounces of resin. So half the amount is resin. And just my frankincense, some benzoin, some more Sumatra and benzoin. Smells very good. Some natural myrrh, some Carterii myrrh. Now again, I get my myrrh and my frankincense from Oman, from the same seller. My opopanics, I'll post a link to that, which is sweet myrrh. I bought quite a bit of this, so this is still what I have left over from the previous batches that I made. I think I got like 2 pounds of this when I bought it. I just really enjoyed the smell of it. And then again, this is frankincense Carterii here. I can tell just by looking at it because it looks different than the frankincense Sacra. And of course I can smell it too. So there's a difference in the smell. So actually there's enough here to complete that 3rd bottle. I have probably about 34 ounces here, if I'm not mistaken, of everything to make that 3rd bottle. I'm in no rush to do that. This gallon here will last quite a while. I gave quite a bit of the previous batch away. Actually, the previous batch is gone. I gave a lot away to friends and family. So I think I maybe have like an 8-ounce bottle upstairs, which is what I'm personally using right now. So I bought that. Real quick, now that I'm thinking about it. So previously, I had bought some 8-ounce plastic, BEP free bottles with the pumps. And in using that with my first batch, those couple of months, notice the oil likes to stick. You have to shake it constantly every day anyway when you're using it. But that plastic naturally holds on to it. And causes a lot of the residue to really stick and settle at the bottom. So when you shake it, you really have to be aggressive with your shaking, and even then you don't get all of it. I had some smaller 2-ounce bottles that I initially first started using, and those were great. The oil was still, kind of settle, but it didn't stick to the glass like it does to the plastic. So since then I've upgraded to these cobalt blue 8-ounce glass bottles. I will post a link to this seller as well, where I got these from, with the pumps. They come long enough so you have to cut them. If you don't, and you go ahead and push this cap down to tighten it, you're going to bend the straw and create a crease, so you won't be able to pump anything out. All right, trust me, I tried it, tested, so you will have to cut these when you use them. Now the good thing about these pumps and the straws with these bottles, you don't have to cut. They come pre-cut, they're measured already for you, which is great. You don't have to worry about that. Just to show you these. So again, this one is full. It's been sitting since last week. The oil that I have here, I started last Saturday. So today is July 29th. So I started that last Saturday at about 4 p.m., 5 p.m. And this time I let it go in the crock pot for a full 7 days on low. Stirred it once every day with a regular spatula. you know, like for icing, caking, whatever. I wanted to use something plastic, didn't want to use metal. So I would stir it once a day, put the lid back on, ready to continue doing this thing. So here is the pump, nice heavy duty spring in there. Very well made, I like it. Cut at an angle, which is good obviously for the bottom of the bottle. You don't want it cut straight across, because as it sits in the bottle, well, then potentially take the risk of it not being able to pump up any oil if it's sitting directly flat. So cutting at an angle allows you some area for the oil still getting underneath. Plastic funnel. Everything's been clean. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna move this over here for right now, just to show you this oil. I froze the resin for a couple of days. Makes it a lot easier to crush, because when it's at room temperature, as I noticed in the first 2 batches that I made, resin holds a lot of gum inside of it. It feels very, very dry. It is very dry on the outside, and you wouldn't know until you started crushing it that the inside still contains gum that is very moist. That moisture in the gum is water. So again, I found out that freezing it, you're able to crush it easier and it not be as sticky. And even despite freezing it and taking it out of the freezer and immediately crushing it, you still get to that gum resin in the core, and it's very, very, very sticky nonetheless. Not as sticky as if the resin was room temperature, but there's just no way to avoid it, period, which is fine. So I highly recommend you freezing it. Now, I did something I didn't do before. I made the mistake of all previous batches of throwing away the resin after I get done making a batch like this. This time, with the first jar that I made like this, that's full, the resin is still in here. So after I drained it, or shall I say strained it, I left the resin in there. And on top of that resin, I added another 32 ounces of fresh resin for this bottle here. So what's really in here is 64 ounces of resin, okay? So you're talking 4 pounds of resin, 16 ounces in a pound, 64 ounces, 4 pounds. All right, 64 ounces of resin, 4 pounds of resin here. Half from the previous batch that I made last week and fresh for this batch. I tried to let it sit. It's still very oily, and consistency still smells very good. I said, why not see what I can pull out of the rest of that with the added fresh resin. And of course here you see some particulate matter floating. This here is just, actually it's wood pieces that you see. Some of the resin, because it's fresh, as you know, resin is just the tree sap. So as they scrape it from the tree and let it dry, or cut the tree to bleed it and then scrape the resin, well, you stand up with some wood pieces attached to the resin. And it's not until you crush it that some of the big pieces you can separate, and then some of them you still can't, or you don't realize how much wood, small wood pieces are still attached until you start this process, and it naturally begins to separate because it gets warmed up and everything that isn't resin floats to the top. All the resin stays in the bottom. So that smells so good. So what I do is I strain it first, and then I add the vitamin E. I have this pan here because on one of my previous batches, using the ball jars, I think I stated in the video, if the jar gets too hot, it will crack the jar. And on one of my jars, I did that. Fortunately, I had it in a pan like this, but when I lifted up the ball jar, It literally, the whole bottom of the jar was just like an even cut, like a very sharp sword or something just came through, and the bottom just fell, and all my oil and resin fell into the pan. That was a good thing that I had the pan. Learn from that mistake. Don't want it to happen again. But this one is good. Also, I didn't use a high heat like I did on that mistake. I kept this one on low. For me, my crock pot, my low temperature setting, actually, I'm sorry, not even low, warm. It was on warm for 7 days. I have 3 settings on the crock pot. If you're going to use a crock pot, I recommend you get one with 3 settings. My warm setting is 105 to 107 degrees Fahrenheit. My low setting pushes 147, 148, 147, 148 degrees Fahrenheit. It's recommended that you, if you're going to do the heat infuse, you keep the temperature between 100 and 140. So the low setting on there is too high to keep it at constantly. Now, if you want to turn it up on low, say for the last hour before you remove it, that's fine. You know, and then obviously turn everything off, let it cool completely before you take it out. Because if you take it out and it's still hot and you put it even in a cool metal pan like this or in a cold granite countertop, that cold and heat is going to cause that glass to crack. All right, you're going to get a physical reaction, which is that glass cracking, and boom, there goes your oil all over your counter and your resin. I had someone in my video recommend that I boil, you know, the stockings. They expressed a concern for, you know, the chemicals in the stocking, like the colored dyes and things of that nature, and to, you know, boil them before using them. Now, I'm going to be honest here. I'm not even going to bear false witness and say that I did that this time. I didn't. My wife and I and our kids were at some friends' housewarming party today for about the last 7 hours. So it's now 8 p.m. at night here, and I'm a little tired. Came home, and I turned this off before we left so it can cool all day while we were gone. But I didn't boil the stocking. Being that this is room temperature, I don't have a concern for, you know, chemicals and that things in the stocking. You know, these are fresh, they're clean, they're brand new. Like I said, I bought a box of 12. So I'm just going to go ahead and use it as I did last time. But it is a very good idea. I think that person had notated and made the comment on my video. And I would definitely be sure to try to implement that in the future. So without further ado, I'm going to move this over here. Actually, let me take this out so I can trade off this jar with this one. Keep this in the pan. And just to show you, I just simply take the stocking, open it up, and pop it on. And doing this, I just remembered something as well, so give me a second. After I get this on here as tight as I can possibly try to get it. Some slack is okay, it's not going to hurt anything. But last week I was concerned about this slipping off, so I called my daughter and had her bring me one of her scrunchies, her hair scrunchies. You know, fresh one, clean one out of her room. You know, you have women in the house like I do, they have packs of these laying around. So I had her get one for me, and I just use it like a rubber band and put it on just to keep the stocking nice and tight on there. Hopefully you can see that. Okay. I'll raise it up a little bit. And we're going to start pouring. I can see through the jar, through the light, so I can see the level. Now, you don't want to fill your jar completely with all 64 ounces, because when you put in that pump, it is going to take up some room and cause your level of oil to rise. Okay, so you can see it's not flowing as heavy, of course. There's still a lot of oil I'm seeing in this jar, sitting with this resin. Carefully, just gonna push some of that back in. Just try to get the oil to flow. Mostly once again. I can't tell you how good this smells. Okay, still quite a bit of oil. Still a lot in there to be strained. Just want to wipe the jar. So it's about to this point right here at this moment in time. There's a lot more I can get out of there. I appreciate you all being here today. Take part of this with me. Fortunately, I don't see a lot of men doing this, which is okay. Hopefully you wives can get your husbands involved. Me, myself, like I said, I started because I moved from California to the East Coast about 18 years ago. And California has dry heat. I never had a problem with skin or even eczema for that matter until I got to the East Coast and started experiencing the actual cold winters and the drying of the skin. And I started developing, eczema on very small parts, say on my arm, things like that, back of the hand initially. Also, just what's available out there now in the market, I didn't like in terms of moisturizers, oils, things of that nature for any dry skin condition, eczema or otherwise, just simply dry skin. I don't trust manufacturers nowadays, period. Let it be known. So that's where it started for me. You have everything is claiming to be organic, it's not organic. Things starting to be labeled non-GMO because people are concerned about genetically modified or engineered food, fruits, products in general. But very few are truly organic, so to speak. So after doing some research and looking into some other options, is when I came across Frankincense and Myrrh, their benefits, utilizing those properties that they have naturally: antifungal, antiviral, antibacterial, things of that nature, which I've even explained in the other videos. So I decided to make my own. Alright, so still quite a bit of oil in the jar. You can see in there. I'm going to keep this, eventually strain the rest out. The bottle itself is pretty full up until this point here. Right where it begins to taper. So the oil is in here. I would probably say a good 60 ounces. I can get the remaining out of here, but I'll do that at some other point. Again, you don't want to fill this up completely because when you put your pump in there, this pump is going to take up more room and it's going to make the oil rise to the surface. So you definitely want to stop at a good point to allow enough room for this to be put into the bottle and tightened. Alright, so even then, you're still not going to get 64 full ounces into this bottle because you have to put the pump in. I would say, I don't know, maybe 62, 61, 62, just to be safe. And we have the vitamin E capsules we're going to use. Four, 6, 8, perfect. And if you're wondering why 8, I use 2 for every 16 ounces. It's what I have read on another apothecary website as a natural preservative, vitamin E itself. So 400 international units, which is 1 capsule. You want to use 2 for every 32 ounces. So I'll just poke it as such and then just squeeze it in. Just be careful, obviously, so you don't hurt yourself. Again, vitamin E is a natural preservative. That's why I'm using it. Jojoba does have a very long shelf life. These bottles that I bought have an expiration date of December 2019. So a year and a half from now. They're not going to last so long. And so here we have the finished product. Pump is in the drawer, vitamin E added. I'm gonna keep this resin, strain the rest. Maybe use this as a body scrub as it was suggested. See about maybe even crushing it a little more. But definitely gonna get the rest of that oil out of there. Probably, I would say no more than another 2 ounces, 3 ounces at most of oil. So I'm not concerned about that. But I appreciate everybody coming. Thanks for dropping by to watch this video. This is Victor at Agape Infused Oils. Finishing up some more of that royal mix. Frankincense, Boswellia Carterii, and Boswellia Sacra, myrrh, the Commiphora myrrh, as well as the Commiphora holtziana, which is known as sweet myrrh, and then benzoin, this Sumatran benzoin. So frankincense, myrrh, benzoin, those three again, the royal mix. Appreciate everybody dropping by. You guys have a blessed day. Thank you.